Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Wednesday. Halfway through the week. A couple days away from Friday, where we will have our Friday Road Show at Scramblers, as we do every Friday out there. And doors do open at 6 a.m. if you want to come out and join us as we broadcast live. Have yourself some breakfast or lunch for breakfast. It is one of those places that if you want to have a hamburger or something at 6 a.m., they will certainly accommodate you for that. And, of course, they are open 7 days a week, so you don't have to keep your visits down to Friday morning while we broadcast live, but of course we'd love to have you out there. And today's the first day that we are going to have our lunch bunch at our new lunch bunch partner, Godfather's Pizza, specifically in Springfield with their all-you-can-eat buffet and salad bar. If you want to get signed up for that lunch bunch, go to KSGF.com, and if you win, then you and up to 5 people of your choosing will join Sarah and me for lunch on a Wednesday. We'll get that all set up and arranged, and it's as easy as getting registered for your chance to win. Today, see if this was on your radar, is the sentencing for Ryan Routh.
Oh, is it?
Yes. Now, some of you are going, should I know that name?
That name sounds familiar.
He tried to assassinate Trump.
That's right.
A couple of, was it months? I think it was in September, the September after Trump took the bullet in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it was just it felt like just a couple months after.
Yeah. And I could be wrong on the date, but it was not long after,
No.
which for a lot of people really compounded the concern that there were real security issues with Secret Service. Because you'd think that soon after a near successful assassination attempt, they'd really be on the ball. And then, here we go again. And a lot of people forget, the only reason that he was apprehended was because some random gal took down his license plate number. I forget for what reason. He was doing something that she found to be suspicious. And so she got his information or took a pic of his license or something. And it was because of that law enforcement knew who it was that they were looking for. Not that they wouldn't have if it weren't for that. You never know for sure. But it was that particular instance that allowed for the expeditious matter of finding and locating the guy. So he had the trial, and it was I think it was September of last year. He was found guilty, and did you know he tried to commit suicide after the guilty verdict in court?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Excuse
Bless
me.
you.
I was going to shut off the mic, but I thought, why bother?
Bless you.
Thank you very much. Do you know why it did not work? So if you forgive yourself if you are completely unaware of this.
Didn't he try to stab himself?
He did try to stab himself with a pen.
Yeah.
Now, if you're like, I didn't even know that he went on trial. I haven't. The media clearly has not given this quite the attention it would have if this were some Trump supporter that tried to assassinate Obama or Kamala Harris or Biden. It would have been trial of the century. There would have been daily coverage. There would have been constant attempts to interview Republicans about the heated rhetoric that causes this sort of behavior, and if they would encourage Trump to tone it down. And the drumbeat that would be utilized on a daily basis in order to create this narrative that Trump supporters are all very dangerous and that Democrats are constantly in danger, their lives on the line because of how just insane and crazy and hate-filled Republican voters are. But because it's one of theirs, and it was yet another attempt to take out Hitler, a.k.a. Donald Trump, there's just not a tremendous amount of focus on it. Because, hey, after all, well, it's 2 reasons. One, it's reality, and reality is in defiance of their narrative. The reality is political violence is not a both sides issue. while you can, of course, always find an example of somebody that might carry out some sort of violent act. For example, the horror, and I know we're all still trying to get over it, of an individual squirting Illinois with apple juice. So, clearly there are examples of extreme hate-driven violence that come from people that are presumably Trump supporters, which is the argument there. But overall, it's very, very clear that the dangerous people are on the left. And having numerous assassination attempts against Trump, having a successful assassination attempt against one of the more influential conservative voices who promoted free speech, that being, of course, Charlie Kirk. So, that truth defies their narrative. Having appropriate coverage of a trial of an individual that attempted to assassinate the President of the United States would be bringing focus to reality. And so they're clearly not going to do that. But you just think about it for a moment. This is how successful the left has become at normalizing violence against conservatives. You have an attempted assassination attempt against the President of the United States. And I bet you, if you asked just the cold question in polling, what is the name of the individual that attempted to assassinate President Trump on his golf course during the election, maybe 5 out of 1,000 people could tell you his name. Now, if you had names listed, multiple choice, it might, oh yeah, I recognize that name. But if you were to ask, what was the name of the person? Maybe 5 out of 1,000 could tell you. I bet over half of Americans didn't even know the guy was on trial, found guilty. And it's mind-boggling how little attention they've paid to it because of how normal they have made violence and acceptable they have made violence against conservatives, against Trump supporters, against Donald Trump. It's a pretty amazing thing. It's not a great reflection on our culture and society today. Well, the sentencing takes place today. This is why I bring it up. He will be sentenced today. So back to what I was mentioning earlier. Last year, when he was found guilty, he attempted to kill himself with a pen. This is something that I don't know at what rate of success people find trying to do this, but I've seen it portrayed in movies before where somebody will try to stab themselves in the neck with a pen in order to take their own life, because that is the tool that they have available to them. Do you know why this did not work? Interesting fun fact. Apparently, there are certain extremely flexible pens that are designed specifically for this very purpose, to have in an area in which individuals might try to use the pen as a weapon. And that happened to be the sort of pen that he grabbed. It was so it didn't even break the skin. Now, can you imagine that? You probably didn't even know this. I didn't know such a thing. Did you know such a thing existed?
No.
It's almost like a novelty pen or something. And here you think, okay, I'm going to kill myself, and then you find out of all the pens you grab. I mean, of course, that's the whole reason that it was there. And I don't know if all the pens in the courtroom or just the defense had these particular sorts of pens. But then you're like, you're trying to stab yourself in the neck, and it's doing nothing, and you find out that it's because it's specifically designed to not allow you to do that, and you didn't even know such a thing existed. Like, I didn't even know such a thing existed. His daughter was in the courtroom. She was screaming and crying, I'll get you out, Dad. Very dramatic scene. Virtually no coverage of it occurring at the time, of course. So today will be the sentencing of the attempted assassin of Donald Trump, Ryan Routh. We got news now. I'm Nick Reed.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 40. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 22. For your Thursday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 53. And for Friday, sunny skies with a high near 60.
Fellow Democratic Socialist of Mamdani slamming Mamdani as the storm blackouts have just left and continue to leave thousands without heat in New York. And we talked earlier in the week about his alteration of how to deal with homeless people who refuse to come in out of the cold. And ever since the old Ed Koch days, who was a Democrat mayor of New York, the policy has been when the temperatures get dangerously cold, you force these people into shelters so they don't die. And that's a policy that was held through administration after administration, Democrat and Rudy Giuliani as a Republican governor of New York City. But Mamdani came along and was like, no, we're not going to do that. Because the compassionate thing to do is respect their right to stay out in the cold. And so what happened is over a dozen homeless people froze to death. Which is, it's almost as if Mamdani is attempting to get all of his homework done plus extra credit as quickly as possible when it comes to demonstrating the results of communism. Communism, fascism, Marxism, socialism. You know how many people during the Stalin era froze to death because of socialism, communism, centrally run government programs, countries, economies. This is what occurs. And I don't know what it is somewhat amusing to watch people horrified that that there are over a dozen human beings dead in New York City that would not be dead because he decided to make a policy change. And to see people that are horrified at this, to see people that express shock, this is what socialism is. I mean, this should be the new theme of New York City. instead of the Big Apple or the city that never sleeps or whatever the different slogans are, it should be, this is what socialism is. He's just, you got to give him credit for producing results, direct results from his policy so quickly. This is, of course, where we see that the lie of socialism, the people on the left, that virtue signal under compassion, and that socialism is the only true humanitarian or communism, or again, any top-down, one person in charge with bureaucrats dictating to people how it is that they're going to live their lives, that it's all done in the name of humanity and compassion as opposed to the evils of a free market system and liberty-minded, centric governments. And when it results in direct deaths, they don't care. In their twisted minds, well, sometimes people have to die in order to make it safer for everyone, or whatever their voices in their heads tell them. The town hall reporting as the winter storm slammed the East Coast, plunging parts of New York City into darkness. Mayor Mamdani was blasted by a fellow member of the Democrat Socialist of America. City Councilwoman Shahana Hanif, representing Brooklyn, blasted the mayor's response, accusing his office of failing to clearly communicate with residents as thousands went without heating. I mean, isn't heat something that is, part of the just the evils of capitalism anyhow, the opulence, the idea of human beings having their own home first off, but then controlling the climate within the home in order to protect themselves from the elements. I mean, come on. After all, why should the average people of New York have the ability to heat their homes when there are homeless people out dying on the streets? I mean, that is the approach of people on the left. You never create an environment or allow an environment to be created in which those who may have a lower quality of life have the ability and liberties to work to increase their quality of life. Instead, those who have done so and find themselves with a higher quality of life, you bring them down. You punish those who are more successful, those who do have a higher quality of life. This is the mindset that turns Cuba into Cuba, Venezuela into Venezuela, former Soviet Union into former Soviet Union. Anyone who has improved their lot in life is viewed with a suspicious eye. Oh, wait a minute, what are they getting away with here? They shouldn't be able to live that lifestyle and have that quality of life when these other people don't. And instead of trying to determine how it is that all the other people can enjoy the higher quality of life, you take the higher quality of life away from those who enjoy it. That's why you have breadlines. That's why everybody becomes miserable, except, of course, the well-connected to the politicians. While people in New York City are needlessly going without heat and homeless people are needlessly dying in the streets, Mamdani is probably still unpacking boxes into Gracie's mansion while he is scheduling bidet installations. All of that is socialism. To the point of, instead of working to improve or allowing conditions to exist that improve the quality of life and raise or allow everyone the ability to raise themselves up, you punish those who have become successful. After the break, another illustration of that in which some education experts are coming out swinging. And what do you think, Mamdani, understanding how socialists work, wants to do with gifted programs in the public schools? The kids who are being held back, being held behind, so you have different opportunities for those kids to live up to their capabilities. What can you imagine he wants to do with those kids? Well, of course, get rid of those programs. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Education experts warning Mamdani's plan could gut New York City gifted programs and hurt low-income students. Of course. This is socialism. We've got that coming up next. A reminder, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Not only are you fully covered when it comes to home buying and home selling in town, in the suburbs, the neighborhoods, but what about those huge ranches? What if you are looking to purchase, or maybe you have 2,400 acres, and you've got a couple of barns, and you have things set up for cattle or horses, and you're looking for somebody who knows all about that, that's an expert in that area. Well, that's where Will comes in. Will Johnson is the offering that you have, who is an expert when it comes to those sort of transactions. And yes, Will is the husband of Emily. So whether it is buying or selling a big chunk of land, fulfilling those Yellowstone dreams, or you're looking for the white picket fence in town or in an outlying area, you are completely covered when it comes to expertise for home buying, home selling. Emily Johnson and Will, House Theory Realty. You can find them under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 40. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 22. For your Thursday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 53. And for Friday, we'll see sunny skies with a high near 60.
You know, Ma'am Donnie, in one way, is like Donald Trump. And Donald Trump's second term, just breakneck speed, putting into play his plans, his policies, getting that stuff going right out of the gate so that in some instances, immediate results could be seen. And Ma'am Donnie has been taking similar steps as a socialist and in New York City as the mayor. And the weather has allowed him to do that. One of the alterations he made that was back from the Ed Koch days, homeless people, because there are some people who are homeless. And when the weather gets deadly cold, they would stay out on the streets, maybe sometimes because of mental deficiencies, maybe sometimes because they're alcoholics. And I don't know if you know this or not, but sometimes when you're drunk, it doesn't feel as cold out as it actually is. And this is a policy that spanned through administration after administration until Ma'am Donnie decided that it was inhumane to force homeless people into shelters, and there's been over a dozen homeless people that have frozen to death as a direct result of that policy. So he's right out of the gate demonstrating socialist policies. I did not think the person who sent it in on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, there was a twitchy story about Ma'am Donnie having blankets handed out to these people that have printed on them in giant letters, courtesy of Mayor Ma'am Donnie. Just a blanket. Not hats, not gloves, not warmers. And again, of course, certainly not forcing those people for their own safety to get into a facility that is heated, but giving them a blanket that is a campaign advertisement, putting his name on it. And, you know, you've got a couple of ways to view this sort of thing. And we're going to there's this other story that I want to talk about where essentially he's wanting to gut the gifted program because, you know, it's just not fair that really smart kids are able to learn when there are dumb kids that aren't. So everyone loses. And what happens is you get a perspective, well, Ma'am Donnie's in over his head. This is particularly when it comes to dealing with the weather. You have snow plowing issues. You have just the basic fundamental day-to-day operations of a city that are falling apart because he's, quote, in over his head. There are essentially two categories, though there's a bit of an overlap of a socialist leader, communist leader. It's the same sort of personality trait. You have those that are just power hungry, and they just want to control things. It has nothing to do with whether or not the policies work, are successful. They just want to control people, and they want power, and they recognize in socialism, when you are in power, you get to live whatever lifestyle you want. This is why the Che Guevaras and the Fidel Castros and now Ma'am Donnie moving from his apartment into Gracie Mansion, which the mayor of New York City does not have to do, redecorating with bidets so he can live like the elite. Then there are the socialists that have never really done anything meaningful in their lives other than they just sit around and Monday morning quarterback everyone else. These are the people, and you may know these people, that they've never run a business in their life, but they're always, criticizing other people who run businesses, or, well, you know what they ought to do, and, well, I'm not surprised they went under, and it's like, what do you know? You don't do anything. This is why socialist leaders, I say generally, I don't know that you could find a high-profile socialist leader that ever had any actual sort of real job with real responsibilities that were dependent upon real-life scenarios and reality. They're just these people who have, and you may know these people in your life, that they weigh in as an expert on things that you know they have no idea what they're talking about, because they've never actually in real life experienced whatever it is that they're critiquing. Someone who's never picked up a hammer, but they will drive by a new construction site on a daily basis and criticize the way it's being done. Not acknowledging that they have no clue why it is what's going on is even going on, because they have no background, no experience. Well, when you take someone like that and then put them in charge of an entire city, and their philosophy is that it is their job to run all of these things and make all of these decisions, when they have zero experience in any of them, is it any wonder that it's always an F-up? Socialist leaders, people who, generally speaking, understand reality, particularly when it comes to the creation of wealth and jobs and the necessity of a free market system for the greatest opportunities for the average person out there. Those individuals don't become socialist because they know what actually works. So by default, people who are socialists don't have knowledge in what it is that makes these things work. Yet they think that they are the ones who should be making those decisions, and once they get into power, they start doing that. You imagine you work for some company, let's say an engineering company, and one day it's announced you have a brand new hands-on CEO that, just everybody have a heads up, he does like to micromanage a lot, and then you find out that he has no experience in engineering whatsoever, zero zip. Didn't even play with Legos as a kid. Now, you can understand what that would mean to the company. Now, take that times 100,000. This is why these things always run into the ground. It's a combination of a belief that centralized planning can work in the first place, combined with the fact that even if it could work, you are occupying the captain's chair with someone who knows nothing of these industries in real life experiences anyhow. You think about Mamdani, he's what, some 30-some year, what is he, 35? Is that how old he is? Is he 35? Why do I think he's 35? Maybe he's older than, he may be older than that. But he has the real life experience of a teenager. This isn't some 34 years old, running New York City. And that isn't to say that you couldn't not have a 34-year-old who has tremendous life experience and is intelligent and insightful and in tune, and that, Lord knows there probably are some that could do a much better job than him. There's some 20-year-olds that could do a better job than him. But this is a spoiled brat. He's a spoiled rich kid whose professional career up until this point has consisted of his mommy giving him all the money he wanted to make music videos. Do you know how stupid that is? That you have these idiot Democrats in New York Of all of the options that they had, including other Democrats, they picked this guy? And then they're just shocked when right out of the gate his policy is resulting in the death of homeless people? The level of stupidity is just, it is a fascinating thing to observe. And, of course, the problem with it, and Clarence Thomas had said this once, paraphrasing, is the problem with socialism is these little experiments is that they have real life consequences on real human beings. Because socialism, it really does operate. It doesn't operate based off of results. It doesn't operate based off of, what has worked in the past. Let's replicate that. It's all just off of these fanciful ideas. It's based off of Fantasyland, where you have some usually totally, completely inexperienced individual, oftentimes raised by wealthy parents, not always, but oftentimes, who just sit around indignant at what they think are the unfair results of freedom and liberty, and they find themselves just thinking, well, here's how it should be. I bet if I did this, I wonder if I did this, if it would work. And so human beings become ants in an ant farm that are subject to the whimsical fantasies of these thought experiments that people on the left have. And what Clarence Thomas noted is that the problem with that is you're talking about real human beings. Real people they suffer the consequences. And there's over a dead homeless people who know that in New York City now. And young people who are hoping to get a leg up in education, and parents who want their children to get a leg up in education, are in line to be the next victim. Socialist New York City Mayor Mamdani outlining plans to scale back the city's gifted and talented program, prompting some education experts to warn that doing so could deprive high-achieving students, particularly those from low-income families, of critical academic opportunities. Well, of course it will. Socialism does not lift up. It pushes down. Recent media reports indicating that Mamdani, who took office in January, intends to end the city's gifted and talented program for kindergarten students and delay entry until third grade, a move critics argue would amount to a major weakening of accelerated learning options in the nation's largest school district. So it's that period of the time that the left tells us is the most important for education. You know how they always go on and on as justification for government-run pre-K. Well, I mean, that's just the most important. Absolutely, those years. And Mamdani's like, yep, you know what? That's what we'll nail. And it's the philosophy of, it's unfair that some children benefit from being smarter or having greater discipline or having parents that parent in a way that guide children towards either desire or an instinct to learn great. That's just not fair. Plus, if you keep, and let's just be frank and flat out simple about this, if you keep or train young people to be stupid and dependent upon you as young people, that is all they're going to know as an adult. And that is the lifeline of socialism. People looking to you to make decisions for them. People looking to you to improve their lot in life. The educated self-propelled individual that takes responsibility for themselves is the worst enemy of the left. which is why they utilize the education system to train young people to grow up as adults that believe they cannot and should not make decisions for themselves. They cannot and should not think for themselves. And that even the very fundamental basics of, one, being responsible for oneself, like feeding yourself or feeding your own children, you shouldn't have to worry about that. You shouldn't have to worry about your health. You shouldn't have to worry about housing. You shouldn't have to worry about anything at all. Don't worry, rely on us. And it's much, much, much easier to condition people to believe that that is the greatest quality of life opportunity that exists if people don't think for themselves and if you keep them dumb. And one way to do that is to eliminate gifted programs and accelerated programs, as Ma'am Donnie's planning on doing. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Nick, you're conflating the fact that Ma'am Donnie didn't round up homeless with the death count as the same. What's wrong with allowing homeless people to make their own decision? The new commie mayor didn't make a proclamation for that warming centers cannot be open. He just didn't have people rounded up. Well, now, just talking about motivation here. And listen, if that's the position that a person wants to take, that, hey, it's their life, their decision, do what they want. Ma'am Donnie did this in the name of compassion. Now, the reason, again, this goes back to the days of Ed Koch, because what they found is oftentimes homeless people aren't right in the head, so they don't know any better, or they are soaked in alcohol and they don't realize the devastating temperatures. When you get that drunk, oftentimes, this is why it's not uncommon. There's a story about a teacher, I think on the East Coast, disappeared, couldn't be found, and she had left a bar and ended up freezing to death because you just don't realize how cold it actually is. So homeless people were dying, and the decision was made that we need to get those people into shelters. Whether we got to pick them up and drag or whatever, because otherwise they're dying. And Ma'am Donnie said, no, that's not compassion. Compassion is not rounding these people up. And so, okay, that, fine, but this is what is important in understanding the definition of compassion and the results of what socialist compassion programs look like or decisions look like, and it's the death of people. You know how many people have died unnecessarily as a result of socialism, all in the name of bettering life for people? Generally, it's the form of famine. people starving to death. And so that is the point here, is the fact that an individual who masquerades a policy as being compassionate, but it results in the unnecessary death of people. And my point is that's pretty consistent with communism and socialism. Another one of you pointed out Bernie Sanders being kicked out of a commune for being lazy. This is, I was actually going to mention this as I was noting the personality traits of socialists, and they're generally people that are Monday morning quarterbacks of life. They sit around and they criticize people who actually do things. You see this a lot with, Donald Trump, he went bankrupt a number of times. Like, oh, okay. And how many businesses successfully have you started? You know, I mean, it's just the constant criticism, particularly of industries that they have absolutely no expertise in. And there was a book written years ago by a guy who grew up in a commune, in this communist commune. And by the way, this was before Bernie Sanders, I believe, ever ran for president. And there was a portion of the book talking about this, guy who had come in, and he was sort of like this, real talker and really extolling the virtues of socialism and communism. And that at one point, they eventually had to kick the guy out because he was so lazy. He never would do anything. You had your shifts of farming, and everybody collectively, would have different shifts. And like, okay, well, you guys, it's your turn this week to clean the latrines, and your turn this week to clean this, and your turn to do this, and what, everyone had their job. Well, all Bernie Sanders wanted to do was sit around and talk about how the way things should be instead of actually doing something. That was in a communist commune. He got kicked out. And this is a guy that many people want to be president of the United States today. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. Bill from Pittsburgh said, hey, we're looking at this wrong. Next, I have a few bad winters, few bad summers. Policies kill off some of these homeless people. Then he can go out and for re-election say, hey, look, my policies have single-handedly decreased the homeless population in New York. This was it yesterday we talked about this? Yes,
Yeah,
you're absolutely
yesterday.
right. In fact, I know that you're right in this perception, because this is something that I think yesterday noted, that this is the way that the left solves these sorts of problems, and it is just to eliminate the people who are the problem. And to that point, yeah, you kill off some people, and Mamdani can already claim that his policies are cutting down on homeless people. I mean, that is it's an astute observation based off of history. We've got 2 more hours ahead. We've got the 7 o'clock hour, the 8 o'clock hour. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hey, everyone, welcome. My name is Nick Reed, streaming live, KSGF.com. We are on YouTube. You can watch the show as we make this magic in studio. Go to YouTube and look up Springfield's Talk 1041. While you're there, you can also look up The Ginge Show. I sat down for an interview with the host of The Ginge Show a couple of weeks ago where we talked about all sorts of things. Some radio and politics, and some having nothing whatsoever to do with any of those things. And I'd like to get more views than any of the other interviews, just for my own selfish purposes. I think it's up since it launched yesterday, over 100, and so
Yeah, I think it's at like 150.
Yeah, all right. So,
last time I looked, it was really good. I listened to it.
oh, yes, you texted, in fact, saying that I sounded smart.
You did sound smart.
For that to stand out.
I said
Something.
Not that you don't sound smart every day. I was just saying it was appealing to the ears.
Yeah, it was very, very kind of you.
But I laughed. So you're so funny.
Oh, well, thank you.
You are. Well, I just
Well.
think that in general. I
Well,
think you're
let's talk
fun.
about this some
You
more,
think
shall
that
we?
You're just a real funny guy. I laughed so hard when you were talking about some of the mean things that people have said throughout the years.
Yeah, that is some of what we did talk about. The funny thing about it was the guy who, Ginge, the host of the show, he and I know each other. We've known each other for a very long time. We've worked. I guess we worked together. We worked on different stations. But we were in meetings all the time. But he never listened to the show. He's not a political guy anyhow, so he knows me just as me, the non-political me. And when he started telling people that he had interviewed me, or was going to interview me, I guess, he said there were a significant number of people that were, he just found out a lot of people hate me. And this shocked him. He just did not realize this. And so we talked about that, and I think that one of the questions, I need to share with you, he did make a little promo clip.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
Oh, okay, good. All right. So I guess we can post that or share it if give people a taste of
Yeah, I
some
was
of
trying
what
to
we talked
figure
about.
out how to do it earlier.
Okay,
And then
all
I
right, excellent.
realized that I didn't know how to do it, so
Okay.
I have to figure it out.
All right. But I had a good time doing it, and there may be some insightful. You may have no interest in it whatsoever, which is fine as well. But it is on YouTube. It's The Ginge Show. It's the most recent episode 14. And then I believe it's also on my Facebook page, Nick Reed, and the KSGF Facebook page, and under Must Read Headlines. So we're putting it just about anywhere that you may search for it. I want to talk here in just a couple of moments. Crystal Quaid has been tapped to lead the Downtown Springfield Association as a new director. But first, Pinnaker Honda. The Pinnaker family. A lot of incredible deals going on. There's just been this real push for electric vehicles. And I've always thought hybrid vehicles, I've got an 09 Chevy Silverado that I bought from the Pinnaker family. But I've always thought if I were going to buy anything that were outside the traditional straight-up gas-powered vehicle, hybrid is the one that makes sense to me because you are using gas, but then utilizing technology within the vehicle to propel it without the use of gas at times. And so you get a tremendous amount of, quote, mileage, but you're not just like shifting it from this fake, the electric, and the electric's not fake, but this whole idea that somehow that's better for the environment, and it's just so much marketing on that end. Well, I mentioned that because they have the brand new 26 Honda Prelude, and this is the next generation of hybrid performance, and it's, to me, the no-brainer if you are looking for that sort of advanced technology and better mileage, but you don't want to be handcuffed to an outlet somewhere all of the time. And of course, they have a tremendous amount of other vehicles as well. 26 and 25s. They have the certified vehicle situation that goes on as well. So you can get incredible deals there. The Pinnaker Advantage, 20% off routine maintenance when you purchase a vehicle from them. And then if you're like me, I bought my truck from Pinnaker Chevy in Republic. I can still get 10% off their brand new maintenance facility at the Pinnaker Honda location. So there's a lot of tremendous amount of benefits of purchasing a new vehicle, pre-owned vehicle, leasing one, or utilizing their state-of-the-art maintenance center, which just opened about, it's under a year ago, I guess it was. Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Coming up, Crystal Quaid to lead Downtown Springfield Association as new director. Just a couple of thoughts on that. Now, the latest news update.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 40. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 22. For your Thursday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 53. And taking a look at Friday, we'll see sunny skies with a high near 60.
Downtown Springfield Association has a new director, former state representative Crystal Quaid. She also, you may recall, ran for governor. She did not win. And in fairness to her, really wasn't expected to, given the environment, the political environment in Missouri, and how people vote overwhelmingly as of late, particularly for statewide offices, for Republicans as opposed to Democrats. So she did have an uphill battle. The Downtown Springfield Association announced Quaid will fill the role of executive director beginning February 17th, the organization announced yesterday in a news release. The leadership role was previously held by Rusty Worley for 19 years before he resigned last year. Quaid was the Democratic candidate for the 24 Missouri governor's race. As the DSA's executive director, she will oversee the association's strategic direction, operations, and partnership to strengthen downtown Springfield, according to a DSA news release. Downtown Springfield has seen several businesses close their doors in the past year. Brian Mattson, chair of the DSA Board of Directors, said Crystal brings a unique blend of leadership, vision, and a strong understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing downtown communities. Her ability to bring people together make her the right leader to guide DSA into the next chapter. Do you think they have any concerns of her trying to kick black business owners out of the community?
Did you wait until I had coffee in my mouth?
I mean, she did, after all,
I
she hired, I believe, out of St. Louis, a high-powered attorney, took a black man to court to try to have him thrown off the ballot when he was running against her. You know, it's amazing when there's all this talk. In fact, right now, you've got, once again, Chuck Schumer out there. Jim Crow 2.0. Voter ID is just Jim Crow 2.0. And here you have local, former state rep, party leader, gubernatorial candidate that went to court in an effort to try and have a black man thrown off the ballot. And that never gets referenced. Do you think that might get mentioned if she were a Republican? Of course it would. Of course. I mean, you want to talk about Jim Crow 2.0 with all of her wealth and resources and some, lower to middle class black man who was trying as a citizen to run and lived in that district and wanted to, participate in the process, just participate in the process. Wasn't asking to be handed a victory, just wanted to run as a black man in Springfield, and he finds himself hauled into court. He has little to no resources to even begin to face off against all of the resources behind Crystal Quaid, and never any mention of it. None whatsoever. So it's kind of surprising, given that, listen, if we decide that criticizing a person of color or even calling for photo ID when it comes to voting, if that's racist, can't we just declare what she did as racist? I mean, if we're going to treat things equally here, we're going to use a objective measuring stick. Clearly, she's a racist based off of that behavior. I wonder if the businesses that are represented by the Downtown Springfield Association that are owned by people of color, are they comfortable with this, knowing what it is that she did? I don't know if these are discussions that were had. You think it would be at least addressed. Does this mean she's racist? I don't know. I don't know her. I just know, based off of what we're told qualifies as a racist, her behavior, without question, by Democrat standards, fits in the racist category. The other part of this that I find to be I think it's one of the problems that we have increasingly in our country and in our state, in our community. And that is tapping people who have no private industry experience to take on a position that, in at least some significant capacity, involves the life and health of private businesses. As the news leader article here notes, downtown Springfield has seen several businesses close their doors in the past year. And Crystal Quaid is, and this doesn't make her a bad person, but, she's someone that went from college to working for Claire McCaskill as a legislative aide, and then did nonprofit stuff and then just became a politician. And what this oftentimes suggests is that when you have an association that decides to pick someone that has virtually or literally no private industry experience, what it takes to run a business, what the burdens are, what the challenges are, but instead someone whose entire life has been government. And like I said, she did do some nonprofit stuff, but right out of college, Claire McCaskill, not long after that, she's running for office. That worries me because it signals perhaps you have an association here that believes government is the answer for a flourishing community, for a flourishing business community and business environment, as opposed to free market. Now, she obviously is going to bring something to the table that others that are simply free market business owners who have been successful when it comes to business, she will be able to bring to the table all of the benefits of having connections to people in government, having those insider connections and so forth, and knowing, well, here we can apply for this, or maybe we can get government tax dollars for that. But that's what worries me. The foundation for a strong, solid community is to have job opportunities for people in that community. And I would argue that the small, locally owned businesses add to that strength of community. And we know, factually speaking, the more government gets involved in that sort of environment, the less strength there is, the less success there is. And having a strategic direction that involves putting someone in charge who doesn't have the experience of business owners, who doesn't have any of that background, but it's all about government. Government is the answer. Government do it. That's very worrisome. And, that's not on her. It's the people who chose her and offered her the job. I mean, of course, if I were her, I'd take it. And she could perhaps be very aware of the fact that this is an area that she doesn't have the real-life experience, that she doesn't. And so she's going to, without question, almost listen exclusively to business owners, given that she already knows the government end of things. And the community in this Downtown Springfield Association and businesses will be much, much better off for it if she does take that approach. But I find generally people whose background is in government and their answer for everything is government, particularly if they're on the left, it generally doesn't work that way. This is a move that, to me, signals less about recognizing the heartbeat of a local downtown area is the free market, small independent business owners, but instead, we can put someone in charge that has connections in government. And that may not be the thinking at all, but that tends to be the way these things work. And that tends to be why it is people hire, and you see it all the time with lobbyists, that they will hire former government officials. It's because of the connections to government. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk at text line. Crystal Quaid will make Pride Day in downtown Springfield even larger. I believe it's held every year on the square. This is in reference to Crystal Quaid being tapped as the Downtown Springfield Association director. And yeah, I don't know what capacity or influence that she will have in that position to do something like that, but I suspect any sort of potential left-wing activism certainly could seep in. Again, this is one of the results, I guess. I don't want to say unintended consequences because I don't know whether it's unintended or not, but when you get a left-wing politician to head up an organization, it isn't necessarily unrealistic to expect those sort of things to occur. Now, I do want to also note, as I was describing what is worrisome to me and having the Downtown Springfield Association, particularly when you have several businesses closing their doors in the past year, instead of hiring somebody whose background is in private industry, you hire somebody from government to direct things, and my concerns of that. On the flip side of that, simply because you know, if you do have a situation in which you do put someone in that position that does have business background, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to lead things in the right direction that are pro-business environment anyhow. I mean, a lot of small business owners in Springfield were very hopeful that there would be a bit of a turnaround in attitude about small businesses by government in Springfield with the new mayor, given his background being a business owner in Springfield. But those people were certainly put on notice when they saw that, it's just the first few months of him being mayor, the city decided to really go hard after the owner of Hotel of Terror. And any hope that there would be some sort of pro-business influence, pro-business rights influence coming out of the mayor's office in any effective fashion was certainly put to rest very early on. So, simply because someone does have business background once they get into government, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to stay allied with the realities of what is helpful versus what is harmful to small business owners in the area.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 40. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 22. For your Thursday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 53. And for Friday, sunny skies with a high near 60.
Ozarks Elder Law, I oftentimes go through just a listing of the different services that they offer, whether that's your straight up will or a trust or power of attorney, medical power of attorney, how it is to pay for nursing homes. You could just tick off the things that they do. And then there's sort of the broad picture as well. There's the focusing on, micro, really focusing down on each and every one of those. But the reality is the vast majority of us just are not ready and prepared for so many of these scenarios, and we could be. And the vast majority of us, I would argue, don't even really know all of the different areas of our lives that should something unexpected or even expected happen, had we planned ahead of time, we would alleviate a lot of the problems that will occur because we don't plan for these things. Sometimes we cost ourselves more money than we otherwise would have. We think we're making the right move. Parents are going to pass and like, well, we'll just transfer the house into your name before, all these little things that are, quote, tricks, not realizing that there is a massive financial implication in it. So the answer just is Ozarks Elder Law. Even if you've in the past written up a will, but it was some time ago, or you did it a month ago living in another state. State to state is different. Schedule a consultation. It does not cost a thing. It is an absolute courtesy. And you can walk in and say, I have no idea anything about, I don't know what I need to plan for. I don't know. And they're going to walk you through so that you do know. And then they will tell you, in order to get these things done, this is the one-time cost. So you know ahead of time whether or not it is something that you find to be worth it. I would argue virtually every time the answer is going to be yes, it is. Ozarks Elder Law, 10 area locations. You can find them, of course, at ozarkselderlaw.com. Also, Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. The ASPS, which represents more than 11,000 physicians globally, found that there is low certainty in the risk-benefit ratio for gender-related surgical intervention for minors. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons published a position statement Tuesday recommending surgeons delay gender reassignment surgeries, yes, I know the terminology, until a patient is 19 years old. The release cites a Department of Health and Human Services article last year highlighting a rapid expansion and implementation of a clinical protocol that lacks sufficient scientific and ethical jurisdiction or justification when it comes to pediatric gender-affirming care. The ASPS, which represents more than 11,000 physicians globally, agreed that there is low certainty in the risk-benefit ratio for gender-related surgical interventions for minors, noting available evidence suggests that a substantial proportion of children with pre-pubertal onset gender dysphoria experience resolution or significant reduction of distress by the time they reach adulthood, absent medical or surgical intervention. Evidence regarding adolescent onset presentation, which has become increasingly common since the mid-2010s, is more limited, but similarly does not allow for confident prediction of long-term trajectories. So in layman's terms, what they're arguing here is that as we begin to see the results of these sex change operations and hormone therapies that are given to children, and the long-term results of that, it's beginning to look like it may not be a good idea. Not to mention the fact that the vast majority of young people who are going through the, puberty that say, yeah, I just don't like this, I don't know, and they get through it, they get over it. But what is unfortunately happening is you have these predators that strike them during that vulnerable period. You may recall, and of course, it depends on your age. For me, it was 5th grade. And I remember all the boys getting into one classroom, and all the girls were taken into another classroom. And we were all told about, hey, this was the theme. Here's some things are going to happen. And they may be weird. They may make you feel weird. You're going to feel awkward. But it's cool. That's normal. It's normal for you to question things. It's normal for you to feel like you're an alien in your own body because it's changing, and that's a change. That's something that is different. So don't freak out. It's okay. It's actually normal. And then we'd all go back to the classrooms, and at recess, the girls and boys would talk about, well, what did they show? What pictures did they show you in your, you have those little conversations. The screwed up thing, the recognition and the comforting of young people by letting them know that is normal to feel that way. Now they tell them, no, that's not normal. Well, that's not normal at all. Ooh, boy, you may actually be a boy. And on top of that, if you don't get a sex change operation, you might kill yourself. That's what they tell these people, these kids. Aside from the reality of the results that we're seeing, the fact that we even begin to entertain the notion that it is anywhere close to appropriate to tell young people for any sort of procedure that you might kill yourself if you don't have this done, that is beyond insanity. That is, it's just incomprehensible. I think of these rare instances in which that would be appropriate. And I suppose maybe, some individual that has tried to kill him or herself 80 different times, and there is some new medication, and, it's not a medication that it requires irreversible surgeries or injecting oneself with chemicals and hormones that will cause harmful effects for the rest of their lives, but something that if it doesn't work, you can get off of it, and saying, hey, here's a new experimental drug, and listen, it's clear there's a pattern here. You've tried to kill yourself 12 different times. Let's try this. If you don't, you'll probably try to kill yourself again because that's what you have been doing. And, maybe this will work. Potentially that is a conversation that seems rational. But to tell a 10, 11, 12-year-old child that the normal angst and confusion that comes along with puberty is not normal, and instead a sign that you're going to kill yourself if you don't get your breasts lobbed off and start getting yourself pumped with these hormone injections? That is as psychotic as it can get. Part of this whole thing that is just as appalling as the thing itself is the fact that we act as if this is a reasonable way for medical professionals to treat children. Can you think of any other form of surgery that a child is told you'll kill yourself if you don't do this? That by itself should be a massive red flag. If you have to threaten a person, particularly a child, with death in order to get them to do something, probably not a good idea. Yesterday, we talked about is the very first civil lawsuit that was won. $2 million. Some medical professionals were ordered to pay because they, among other things, told a young, I think she was 14-year-old girl, and her mom that if she didn't lob her breast off, she'd kill herself. And it was noted that there were a whole list of other issues and problems. She was autistic, which is a demographic targeted by these people, but also anorexic, had body issues, anorexic. Now, imagine if you have a 14-year-old girl who is either bulimic or is anorexic because in their minds, I'm fat. Doesn't matter what the physical reality is, but she thinks she's fat. What would we do to a doctor who said, you need liposuction, and if you don't get it, you'll kill yourself? It's the same thing. Telling someone or validating someone's delusion about their body, and then telling them that if they don't take this surgical step in order to address it, they will kill themselves. It is no different than telling some 14-year-old bulimic or anorexic, you need yes, you're right, you are fat. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If they do, then they are haters. And we're going to sign you up for liposuction so you don't kill yourself. I think most of us recognize how sick and twisted that is, but most of us also would have recognized 20 years ago. I mean, what is happening today would have been viewed the exact same way as the bulimia, anorexia example I just gave you. People say, well, that's insane. They would put that person in prison. But today, that is a position held and promoted by an entire political party in this country. And all in the name of compassion. Yet it's amazing that increasingly, and there are underway dozens of lawsuits from these individuals that were coaxed into these sorts of surgeries that have become adults now. What you don't have are adults suing doctors and therapists from when they were children who didn't recommend these surgeries. You don't have some individual who's 24 years old suing their psychiatrist or their doctor for not recommending or performing sex change operations on them when they need it. You don't have that occurring, but it's the other way around. What does that tell us? After the traffic update, dates on the calendar for Bill and Hillary Clinton to testify after facing contempt of Congress vote and potential charges. So what dates we should expect them coming up next and whether they'll actually show up. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Another day, another great review for my friends over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Barb, she wrote, we had a great experience with Foreman Mechanical repairing our heat pump. Tim was knowledgeable and easy to work with. No sales pitch to buy a new unit. They charged a very fair price compared to other HVAC businesses in town. We will always recommend them without reservation. And that is so true about the Foreman team. They won't try to use any type of scare tactics or upsell you into a new unit. That is not how they work. I know that to be true because my previous unit was 28 years old, and I had the Foreman team do a couple of repairs throughout the years, but they were also there for me when I decided, hey, it is finally time to upgrade. So whether you are needing a repair or maybe it is time for a new unit, the Foreman team, they have got you covered for all of your HVAC needs. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
A question from the Pyramid Roofing Company Talk and Text line. Has a survey ever been done on how many become suicidal after having sex change operations? Specifically, yes, and the answer is yes. In fact, and so this is very important because what was occurring for a period of time is you had studies that turned out to not be scientifically based, claiming that not performing these surgeries on kids is what led to suicide. That's why you would have these doctors say, well, you can either have a living daughter or a dead son. I mean, that was a constant marketing tool that was used to manipulate parents into feeling as if they had no choice.
It's so sad.
It is. It's sick and it's twisted and sad. Well, part of what they also relied on was the fact that enough time had not passed with a high volume of young people being convinced to do this and then subsequently seeing after they got it the years down the road what actually happens with them. It was similar to COVID, how they're like, COVID's absolutely safe. I'm like, well, people have only been taking the jab for like 3 months. Can we really declare that it's absolutely safe at this point? Well, then as time would go on, we would begin to see some of the real life negative impacts of the COVID shot. And it was similar when it came to kids getting sex change operations. They were making these declarations before there was even an opportunity to see what the results were with a meaningful volume of individuals to get an actual scientific look. And so I pulled up because I remembered this at the time. And there was, this was from last year, an Oxford study confirming that sex change operations increase suicide and depression. And that study analyzed data from 107,000 patients and found that individuals who underwent sex change operations face significantly higher psychological distress compared to those who did not. And it goes down into the breakdown. And by the way, this isn't even kids. This is adults that they're talking about. Adults who at least have some advancement in brain development to where they have the ability, age-wise, to make decisions on their own autonomously, as opposed to a 12-year-old who just, you believe what you're if a doctor or your parent or a psychologist, you just believe that's the absolute truth. You aren't necessarily able to comprehend, oh, these are also human beings that may be flawed and incorrect in their assumption, or they may have ulterior motives. To me, it makes sense. Because what you are doing here is you are taking people that have actual psychological issues or problems. When it comes to girls, preteen and teenage girls who get sex change operations, a very, very high portion of it, like I said, a lot of them are autistic, but a massive percentage of these girls have been victims of sexual assault. And so they blame their body for it. They've told these stories. They're available. The left tries to suppress these stories, but they talk about how they were raped or they were sexually assaulted, and it's oftentimes their breasts that they blame for it. They hate their breasts because they feel because it's a constant reminder of the assault. Guys oogle their breast, and it just reminds them of that trauma. It's like a constant trauma, and so because then they end up in therapy, they talk about how they hate their breast. Well, it must be because you're a guy. And so instead of treating what is actually the real true problem, because there is one there, they make it astronomically worse by saying, oh, well, what you need is a sex change operation that's completely irreversible. And so particularly and I know this is going to stereotype and make a lot of people, particularly on the left, angry, but when you take away a woman's ability to have a child and or to breastfeed, while some may not necessarily care for that, it's not unusual for young girls to, once they become a woman, to want to have children, and that has been robbed of them. So whatever and that's a specific sort of outcome that we hear all the time from girls who are convinced to get sex change operations as children, that you have a problem that doesn't get addressed, and then they put on top of it another massive problem that, by the way, you can never reverse. I don't need numbers to tell me that probably isn't going to improve the mental health of the patient. That being said, the numbers, of course, have proven that that is a correct assumption. They're at the same time with all this transgender sex reassignment surgery stuff with kids. This battle that has been going on in the gay community against it that doesn't get coverage because, again, the media is not going to. The media wants you to believe that lesbians, gays, transgenders, queer, and then anything else that gets attached to it, they're all exactly the same. But there are many in the gay community that they argue this trans movement is anti-gay because what they do is they will take maybe a 15 or 16-year-old girl that is a lesbian and likes other girls but is convinced by the trans movement it isn't because she's a girl who likes girls, it's because she's actually a guy. And there are many that are in it's the more gay activist movement out there that are pushing back and accusing the trans community of essentially trying to eliminate gay people by transitioning them all. And you will see at some of these protests that are generally considered, the anti-trans conservative individuals, people holding up banners and signs that say, "Stop transitioning gay kids." And that is a message coming out of the gay community. So there are a lot of what many people might consider to be unexpected allies in the fight against this continued effort to mutilate young people in the name of transgenderism. All right, I'll update you on the Clintons. There is a date on the calendar for them to testify. That coming in the next hour. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hour 3 officially underway. Now, you can see a bonus video if you'd like. Of course, now we stream the show on YouTube. Springfield's Talk 1041. You can watch past episodes. Last week or the week before, I guess, I sat down with the host of the Jen Show for an interview. I didn't ask for the questions ahead of time. I had no idea what questions would come my way, and some of them were political. Some were just about how I got to where I am, and some had nothing whatsoever to do with anything political. But I frankly don't remember what half the stuff was. You watched it. You said it was pretty good,
really
insightful, enjoyable.
I really enjoyed the rapid fire section. I liked the first part because it was a little bit political, and then it went into the just random questions. So I enjoyed that part.
I enjoyed the political part because Jen, the host, is not political whatsoever, and so there was discussions just about those who do versus those who don't get involved, why he doesn't involve himself, and just that discussion. And anyway, I enjoyed doing it. I hope that people enjoy watching it as much as I enjoyed sitting down. I guess I just like talking about myself. That must be why. I'm like, why did I enjoy that so much? I could have done that for just hours and hours and hours. I guess I just like to talk about me.
There you go.
I don't like to then watch or listen to me. In the moment, however, I must just really enjoy it. That is also on YouTube. It's the Ginge Show. It's episode 14. You can also go to my Facebook page, which is Nick Reed, the KSGF Facebook page, and then KSGF.com, Nick's Must Read Headlines. Find it there also if you'd like to watch it. If I don't get more views than the other interviews, I will be humiliated. And I will quit the show.
Oh, don't do that.
I will not quit the show. That is absolutely 100%
Great.
not true.
You've got the rumor mill going. Did you hear Nick's going to quit?
Yes, that those three people that happen to turn it off exactly as or they hit scan because they're like, A's getting boring. And then by the time they got back, I had already passed the part that I said I'm not really going to.
Joking. Maybe.
That's how all the rumors get started. Yeah. What am I going to do if I don't do this to make money? I don't know what would I do? I mean, I guess somebody could pay me to be a political consultant. I'd be very, very good at that. I mean, there are a lot of things that I think, I could do it, but I don't know if I'd be good at it. Political consultant, I'd be very, very good at that.
I feel like you'd be miserable, though.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I love doing this, so that's why, I mean, the combination. But I'm just even talking about, what would I do that I could make a living that I didn't like? I don't know how many things that I could do that people would hire me for. I just don't know. I'm kind of a one-trick pony. I could join the carnival, I guess. I was going to say the circus, but that requires some level of talent. I don't know that you really,
And you have no depth perception, so.
That is, yeah. So I certainly, day one would be the last day for me.
Josh over at the Pyramid Roofing Company texted and said that you could come work at Pyramid. So there you go. You've got options.
I've been kind of mean to him.
That is true.
I don't know that I'd want to be on a roof of a 2-story house with him at this point. Well, all right, Josh, thank you. Now I know what my backup is. Okay, let's see. The Clintons here. I know that was a weird pause transition, but I just didn't know how else to do it. I did. Well, I didn't know. That was all I had to say. I thought, okay, I'm done with that now. Date set for Clinton's Epstein testimony as they cave to Comer's terms. Former President Bill Clinton will appear for deposition Friday 27th. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will appear deposition February 26th. Yeah, we shall see. Now, I talked about this yesterday, and I left open the possibility that they may just go ahead. And they may have been advised, listen, you don't really have much of an option here. They have the votes to go ahead and in the full Congress. It passed out a committee with a number of Democrats, the younger squad-style Democrats, also voting to hold them in contempt because they defied a subpoena to testify about Jeffrey Epstein. What are they hiding? Clear cover-up. So the vote came out of committee. We were assured that there would be enough votes for Congress as a whole, and then it would go for criminal referral to Pam Bondi, And given that Democrats sent Steve Bannon to prison for defying a subpoena, it'd be kind of difficult to argue that the Clintons shouldn't go also. So perhaps they just really were told, you just got to do this thing. Just go in. You're not going to remember anything anyway, wink, wink. So what difference does it make? Fine, we'll do it. Or what I believe is the most likely scenario, and I argued yesterday, is this is all delay. Put it on the calendar, the end of the month, so then the vote is held off, and then sometime, maybe even that day, all of this, they make some just tiny little request. Oh, actually, here's something that it's no big deal at all. I'm sure you'll be fine with it. And it'll be something that Comer, as chair of the committee, will be like, no, we're not going to do that. And then they're like, well, now wait a minute here. We're trying to work with you. We've been planning for weeks to come and give you all the information. I mean, we're doing everything we can in good faith to comply with this, but now you're just going to start throwing these obstacles up, the gaslighting. And then Comer's going to have to decide, okay, do we? Nope, we got two options in that scenario. You say, nope, all right, we're going to kick the vote to Congress. But the Clintons, politically, knowing how so many Republicans are, will bank on just enough Democrats voting against it because the Clintons will be out there with the Democrats saying, hey, they're trying. Clearly, this is about just nailing the Clintons, not getting to the truth, because if it was about getting to the truth, then this tiny little agreement is all it would take. We'll see. And like I said, I've left the door open for the possibility that they will actually show up. But knowing their history and them knowing how easy it is to scare Republicans into thinking that they're going to look like they're just trying to get political opposition, all of this screams tactics of delay. So now I have something to look forward to this month, getting through it to see whether or not they comply or this is the delay tactic. Latest news update.
Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 40. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 22. For your Thursday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 53. And for Friday, we'll see sunny skies with a high near 60.
Tax refunds, what to do with it. You can, put it away, save it, invest it. You can blow it on fireworks and candy if you want to, whatever you want to do with it. Or you can really, I say invest. It's not so much financial investment, but investment in your home, the value of your home, and just the quality of life at home with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. You know that it was just around this time last year. Well, it was closer to summertime. It was months down the road, but it was around this time last year. I was getting really excited because I knew coming up before too long, Hunter Hardscapes was going to begin our outdoor living space project, and it has just really, truly changed the way that my family interacts when we have people over. For us, it was pretty basic, simple. It was just taking some of that otherwise lawn that we pay so much per square foot for and creating an outdoor patio area that has plenty of room to accommodate numerous people and to have the smokeless fire pit built into it and an area wrapped around that accommodates off sort of out of view our Traeger and what I hope is going to be a future addition to the Traeger for other forms of outdoor cooking. But, you can do that. You can have outdoor kitchen areas. You can have outdoor entertainment areas. You can have something small, large. Plus, they do all sorts of incredible landscaping and drainage help as well. You can see what they do at hunterhardscapes.com. Also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. And I'm telling you, prep for spring into summer because they are premier. They are the highly sought exclusive when it comes to this quality of work, and so they aren't going to be out there in a month. Maybe to get the plan started, but in terms of actually getting the project underway, that's going to be a little ways down the road. So that's why you ought to plan now. HunterHardscapes.com. Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Finally. The Native American tribe that owns the land under Billie Eilish's multi-million-dollar Los Angeles mansion said celebrities should explicitly reference the tribe specifically if they want to use them to virtue signal, and are looking forward to having further conversations with Billie about, what exactly, okay, so the stolen land, so now what? The Tongva tribe confirmed that Billie Eilish's $3 million home does sit on its ancestral land after the 24-year-old used her Grammy acceptance speech to rail against ICE and insist that no one is illegal on stolen land. The indigenous inhabitants of the Los Angeles basin, known as the First Angelenos, said they appreciate Eilish's sentiment. However, they noted that the performer hasn't contacted them directly and insisted that next time she explicitly reference them, that being the tribe. Quote, Eilish has not contacted our tribe directly regarding her property. We do value the instance when public figures provide visibility to the true history of this country, a Tongva spokesperson told the Daily Mail. It is our hope that in future discussions, the tribe can be explicitly referenced to ensure the public understands that the greater Los Angeles basin remains Gabrielino Tongva territory, the spokesperson added. Now, there are a couple of different, sometimes conflicting thoughts I have on this and a situation like this. And this is a good step forward. Because the left, as you know, loves to virtue signal in this stuff. And by virtue signal, I mean, for those that don't really understand the use of that terminology, is to outwardly speak in a virtuous manner, but that's it. You're not doing anything. It does nothing. Well, on stolen land. Okay, now what? Does that somehow make you virtuous? Now, they think it does. It makes them feel virtuous. It makes them feel morally superior because why are they this is a lecture. Why else do you take a moment in which the world is watching you in order to make this sort of statement? You are lecturing people. the vast masses who don't understand and appreciate that we're on stolen land, which, of course, is, in her mind, furthering the point that that means we should not deport people who are trespassing in this country. Now, immediately, common sense people, when she uttered this declaration, began noting, guess what? I mean, they were all over social media. Good news, everyone. I'm moving into Billie Eilish's house because she can't claim to own it because you can't, quote, own stolen land. And she can't say I'm not welcome because she's just declared that when you do live on stolen land, you can't claim somebody is there illegally. You can't say somebody's trespassing because it's stolen land anyhow. Now, this is where you and I understand the hypocrisy of the left. Of course, she doesn't mean her land. No, that's different. Well, why is it different? Well, because it's her. The fact that now, and this is, like I said, step in the right direction, you have the people of whom she speaks going, oh, yeah, hey, let's have a conversation here. What'll probably get, it's not a notice, but there's a point that's missed here in which they're saying, hey, why don't you actually point out our specific people and tribe? This is significant because anytime the left talks about indigenous people or Native Americans, they talk about them in a way that suggests they're all the same. That they are, Indigenous People Day, and they portray them as if they were all the same in terms of their cultures and their beliefs. And that is as erroneous as claiming all Europeans are the same. Well, no, you have the French, you have the Germans, you have the English, you have the Swedes, just because they're all Europeans does not mean that they're all the same, but that's how they portray Native Americans, and largely because that's what they think. They have so little knowledge as to the history of the different Native American cultures and tribes throughout this country, and the fact that, by the way, they stole land from each other all the time. Land was being stolen here in the United States well before, quote, white people stole it. They were stealing it from each other. In fact, there are tribes that no longer exist today because they were completely, every one of them, wiped out and murdered to steal their land by other tribes, women and children included. So there's something a little bit pleasurable to see one of these very specific groupings that have this connection, they're descendants of Native Americans, to be like, okay, first off, can we stop just lumping us all together, and maybe you can specifically list if you're going to be talking about the stolen land, and hey, let's narrow it down to the land that you're on. Now, the next step is for them to simply ask for it back. What can you possibly say in response to that? What justification can you give to not give it back if you're somebody like Billie Eilish? What are you going to say? Well, now I can't do that. See, I actually bought it. Oh, so you can buy stolen land? So you're declaring that because you legally purchased it, you have the legal right to have that specific geographic area with your own geographic borders, because that's what you're arguing we're not supposed to do as a country in particular, that we can't tell people that they can't just come in and take some of this because, hey, it's stolen. And if you have something under your legal possession that is stolen, then you can't stop other people from coming in to get it because it's illegitimate. It's an illegitimate purchase. It's an illegitimate acquisition because it was stolen. Well, that applies to her property as well. These people on the left, particularly the wealthy one percenters, have for too long been allowed to throw out these righteous, declarations in which they want to assign guilt to everyone under the sun, and they will sort of, even lump themselves in with it until somebody comes along and says, okay, how about we practice what we preach here? Now, of course, the problem is we haven't really had that. None of these people have been forced in a public realm, public discussion, to actually confront the realities of what they're arguing. And I would love, if not in this instance, in a future instance, any of these people who run around talking about how, you and I should not expect to have security as a country, and we cannot expect to have illegals stay off of our property as a country because it's stolen, so we legitimately can't claim we own it, to apply that to that person's property as well and force the issue. Because these people need to account for the realities of the things that they are using and the people they're using to virtue signal while lecturing the rest of us who don't have the luxuries of the 1% left. Weather in a moment, and then Jill Biden's ex-husband charged with murdering his wife. I don't know why that just seems to really track somehow. Traffic, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 40. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a low around 22. For your Thursday, mostly sunny and breezy with a high near 53. And for Friday, we'll see sunny skies and a high near 60.
I have to tell you something funny. I think it's funny.
Okay.
Yesterday, we talked about the news from Alamo Draft House that the new nationwide corporate policy is that they were going to force you to use your phone to order food and drinks from now on during the movie, which just universally all over the place, people are opposed to this. I mean, there are high profile. I think Elijah Wood was one of the actors, and you got some film association, and they're all like, this is a horrible idea. And if you aren't familiar with Alamo has, I mean, they've just been known for their very
strict phone policy.
Very strict phone policy. And now you're going to force people to use their phones to order. Yeah. And we talked about the potential reasons for it and why they certainly don't seem to outweigh the negatives, particularly when it comes to the customer experience. But anyway, so last night we're at home, and I know this comes as a shock to most of you. My wife doesn't necessarily listen to the show. And and we're just sitting there, and she's reading news stuff or I guess, I don't know if it may be her social media feed, but just out of the blue, she goes, Alamo Draft House is going to start requiring you to use your phone to order now. And I said, yeah. And she goes, I won't go back there if they do that. She said, I just won't do it. And she loves Alamo Draft House. But she already was a little upset because during COVID, they wiped out all of her points, I guess. You could earn points. She's like, I was at captain level, and they took me all the way back. So, which I had totally forgot. Yeah, and I'm sure those points have expirations or something. I don't remember the exact circumstances, but she already was a little tweaked about that. But she was like, she goes, I will not. She goes, I'm serious. So we won't do it. We'll go to B Marquee Suites. We'll drive down to Nixa and go there. And I told her, I said, I cannot imagine they're going to keep that policy. But at the same time, after my mom was listening to us talk about it, and she had texted that my stepdad, he would have starved before he would have just gone hungry before he did that. And I'm just telling you, I have yet to hear anybody say, well, now, I think that might be a good idea. Yeah, I do. I think Cracker Barrel level mistake. But anyhow, we'll see. Maybe they'll stick to their guns. Jill Biden's ex-husband charged with murdering his wife. Now, clearly, her ex-husband has nothing to do with the Bidens other than if you ask him, Jill Biden was, like, during a significant portion of their marriage, cheating with Joe Biden. Now, that's not the way the Bidens tell it. The Bidens tell it that, they had already gotten divorced before they started dating, but he says that's absolutely untrue. But so he doesn't have any connections to the Bidens, but for whatever reason, just the fact that he's in their orbit and now he's accused of murdering his wife, it just seems absolutely William Stevenson, reportedly former First Lady Joe Biden's ex-husband, I don't know what that reportedly means, was arrested and charged with murdering his current wife, authorities said. Stevenson, who's 77, was taken into custody Monday and has been charged with first-degree murder in the death of Linda Stevenson, said the New Castle County Police in Delaware. Officers were called on December 28th concerning a domestic dispute to a home where they found Linda Stevenson unresponsive, authorities said at the time. After being pronounced dead, her body was turned over to the Delaware Division of Forensic Science for an autopsy. Authorities did not list a cause of death on Tuesday. Stevenson was arrested following an extensive weeks-long investigation. A grand jury indicted him on Monday. He was taken to Howard Young Correctional Institution after failing to post $500,000 cash bail. Fox News Digital reached out to the office of Joe and Jill Biden, but they did not immediately respond. The former First Lady married Stevenson in 1970 when she was 18 and attending the University of Delaware. He was 23, according to the reports. The couple were married for 5 years before they divorced. She eventually went on to marry then Senator Joe Biden. But she really knows how to pick them. Now, but I think it's still a fair question. Which is the worst pick for her, for a husband? Joe Biden or the ex-husband who murdered or is accused of murdering his most recent wife? I don't know the answer to that. Some of that's personal taste, though. Daily Call, I've just got a couple of stories that they're nothing monumental or massive. They caught my attention. Bernie Sanders made orgasm contraption to harness energy, according to a new book. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders reportedly built a device that would harness a supposed sexual life force energy and release it in the form of explosive orgasms when he was in college, according to a book set to be released Tuesday. Dan Chasen, author of Bernie for Burlington, The Rise of the People's Politician, claims Sanders became a devotee of Dr. Wilhelm Reich, an Austrian psychoanalyst and sexologist, in his early 20s. Sanders then built a 5-foot-long prayer mat made of spiked copper wires that he would sleep on to channel orgone, which Reich theorized was a universal energy heavily rooted in sexuality. Reich also notably believed there was correlations between sexual repression and fascism. Reich also, quote, connected political liberation with the cultivation of cosmos-shattering orgasms. The psychoanalyst also created a shed-like device known as an orgone accumulator, which would supposedly accumulate orgastic energy circulating in the air, which Reich believed could cure various diseases such as cancer. This according to a report from Mother Jones in 2015. Now, Reich would die in 1957 while serving a 2-year prison sentence connecting to his breach of an injunction from the FDA that barred him from selling orgone accumulators across the country.
I don't like anything about this story. I mean, nothing.
Sanders was influenced by Sigmund Freud, Karl Marx, and Reich. During his time at the University of Chicago, would read their works to better understand what he regarded as the disadvantages of living life under capitalism. While attending the University of Chicago, he wrote an article in The Maroon, the university's student newspaper, titled Sex and the Single Girl Part 2, an homage to the feminist book by Helen Gurley Brown, where Sanders argued against the college housing policy which barred women from living off campus and not being allowed to have male visitors in their housing, according to the outlet. Sanders labeled the university's policy as an oppressive code of morality that amounted to forced chastity. Sanders came, now I was going to mention this, but it is in this particular article. Sanders came under scrutiny during his presidential campaign due to an article that he wrote about gender roles, which he stated that women have rape fantasies. This is what you women, this is what Bernie Sanders thinks, or at least thought about women at the time, that you fantasize about being raped. You know, I remember these things, and every time I see him at some event with Ocasio-Cortez and all these young college women that are cheering him, in his mind, or at least at one point, to the point that he wrote about it, he believed that you sit around, rape, you don't have a problem, you fantasize about it, you want it. That's Bernie Sanders. Oh, but Donald Trump talked about grabbing women by their private parts. That's problematic. The Bernie Sanders essay contains statements such as a woman enjoys intercourse with her man and she fantasizes about being raped by 3 men simultaneously. He would also argue, do you know why the newspapers with the articles like Girl 12 raped by 14 men sell so well? To what in us are they appealing? Sanders' office did not respond immediately to a request for comment from the Daily Caller News Foundation. He's a perfectly normal human being. Perfectly normal human being. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company, Zach wrote, Josh was phenomenal to work with. They inspected my roof and were honest with their opinion and even gave great advice. Nothing was forced and no scare tactics were used. They are very knowledgeable. I highly recommend the Pyramid Roofing Company. And that's what you get with the Pyramid team. They definitely do not believe in using scare tactics. They're not going to upsell you. In fact, they take tons of photos and videos during that free roof inspection so you can see exactly what they see, and then they come up with the best plan for you and your home. Sometimes that doesn't mean a whole new roof. Maybe it means just a simple roof repair. Either way, the Pyramid team, they have got you taken care of. So you can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
One of the news stories that is dominating the headlines for reasons that I think are reasonable and understandable is this Nancy Guthrie missing person abduction. It seems to be as if that is certainly the direction they are suggesting. And I think it's getting attention for a number of reasons. One, because she is the mother of today's show co-host Savannah Guthrie. And you got the high-profile nature of it. At the same time, there is just a lot of lack of any information, and anytime that happens, that's intriguing. We were talking about it off air just a couple of days ago. I hadn't talked about it on air yet until now, but just to disappear like that, and like it was just, sometimes you do have random crazy people, but generally someone that age doesn't necessarily have a stalker, because you think, well, a stalker, stalkers tend to be older guys and younger girls. Not always, but oftentimes that's the case. Not an 84-year-old elderly woman with health issues. And again, doesn't mean that it's not possible, but there's just a lot about it that makes your mind think and wonder. And here she just disappeared. No one knows where she is. And so you've got the intrigue component combined with the high-profile nature of the fact that, again, her daughter is on the Today Show and is very well known. Yesterday, it was revealed that TMZ had received a ransom note demanding, I think, was it $3 million in Bitcoin?
It was something like that.
Some big amount of Bitcoin. I saw this morning that now they're saying there were 2 media outlets that received the ransom note. So it sounded like it was the same one. That I guess my instinct is 50-50 as to whether it's actually connected. In fact, I might even be 60-40, leaning towards somebody that is just trying to take advantage of the situation. I don't know. Maybe not. You try to think, okay, well, if I were doing this, why would you not just send it directly to the family? Or maybe this was something that was sent to law enforcement and the family. That was a thing that we talked about off air a couple of days ago. I said, they could very well have some sort of ransom note that they just don't want to reveal right now. And if that were the case and the kidnappers were annoyed that they weren't talking about it as they were holding these press conferences, so they in turn sent it to media outlets. Law enforcement has said they're aware that there is a ransom note, but they aren't saying much beyond that. So I don't know. I still think that there's just a great likelihood that isn't necessarily connected, but it does make one wonder what would motivate someone to kidnap an elderly woman like this if there wasn't any sort of ransom note. Some believe that maybe it is just someone obsessed with her, with Samantha Guthrie, and this is a way to get to her. And while many people might argue probably not the best tactic, crazy people do crazy things. And given the proximity to the border, there are a lot of folks that think perhaps maybe this is something that is an illegal immigration issue, whether it be random or some sort of drug cartel knowing, this is a high-profile person's grandmother or mother, rather, and maybe we can extract some money out of her. I don't know. Which doesn't really add anything whatsoever. Obviously, there's no insight other than this is just such a high profile thing that's going on right now. I do tend to think that if you are going to try and kidnap somebody for money, the family member of someone, you would pick a family member of somebody like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, not Samantha Guthrie, because while she clearly is someone that has a greater degree of wealth than the average person, she's not a billionaire. I mean, I'm sure she lives very well. She's probably got multi-millions of dollars. She probably has a multi-million-dollar contract, but I don't know. $3 million or whatever the amount is to somebody like an Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos would be absolutely nothing whatsoever. It's walking around money. But Samantha Guthrie, that's just a real big amount. So, but like I said, I'm trying to think like a crazy person would, or at least a deviant one. And I'd like to think I'm neither of those things. There is a component to this, however, that I'm sure won't get discussed. And perhaps it shouldn't. But usually around this time, when there is this much coverage of a missing person, and the missing person is white, we begin to hear discussions in the media about how disproportionate the coverage is when it's a white person and all of these people of color disappear and it doesn't get the same sort of coverage. This is the exact conversation that happened a couple of years ago when that girl disappeared. You know the one, what do you remember her name?
Gabby?
Well,
Gabby
yeah,
Petito?
yeah. When she had disappeared, and there was a tremendous amount of coverage, great deal of mystery surrounding it, and you had on media these discussions about the number of, especially indigenous girls that disappear, or other women of color, and how they don't get nearly this much attention, and why is that? I suspect that conversation is not going to happen this time around because the media considers this to be one of their own. This is a mother of one of our colleagues. And so it would be inappropriate to have that sort of conversation. And I would argue that that's not an illegitimate thing to think, but why does that not apply to families that you don't know? If it is inappropriate to, when you know someone, you're like, well, we don't want to, gosh, have that discussion. Poor Samantha, we know her and this is horrible. And, to be having this discussion when her mom is missing. Well, every time someone's missing, there are some parent, some daughter, some brother, some sister that's heartbreaking. And why is it you don't mind subjecting them to those sorts of conversations? But if it's one of your colleagues, you don't? And I could be wrong. That may be part of the discussion that occurs as it does every time there is a high-profile missing white person. But I think there's a very good chance that this time we won't be hearing so much of that. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. I was saying Samantha Guthrie. It's Savannah Guthrie. Regarding the potential ransom demands, as a couple of news outlets, TMZ being one of them, receiving ransom notes, and whether that's legit or not, that's something they're going to have to determine. And they may already know the answer to that. And I noted that if you try to get into the minds of these people, and you can't really, because your brain doesn't work like theirs do. But I was thinking, if I were going to kidnap a family member of somebody high profile for money, it'd be somebody that was worth a lot more, like a Jeff Bezos or a Elon Musk. And someone had texted in that Guthrie's net worth is 40 million, and that is a lot. Of course, that doesn't mean that you have 40 million in cash either. There are people whose net worth are $100 million, but they're kind of almost in the hole because that's in homes and other things that they're making payments on. I don't know. But I guess the kidnapper wouldn't know either. So this, of course, is what oftentimes happens when there is a lot of these unknowns, is you end up doing a lot of speculation. Someone said, I heard that she had a pacemaker and it stopped. So what my understanding of that aspect is that her pacemaker was synced up with her iPhone for monitoring purposes, and the iPhone quit receiving the signal at like 2 a.m. Now, I inferred from that, not that it's because it was registering it quit working, but because she was out of distance from her iPhone, that probably through Bluetooth or some other means, it tracked and monitored the pacemaker's operation. But if you were outside of a certain distance from your phone, then it would lose that contact. That's the inference I took from it. And so that they were believing she was kidnapped around that time, because that's when they would have, or he or she would have taken her away from the home and where her phone was. But again, obviously it's an a horrible thing. And when you're high profile, adding to the fact that you recognize so much attention. The one hand is that it could help because you have a lot more people aware of it that could be witnesses or have some information. But on the other hand, they're also, all eyes are on you as well, and how you behave and what you do, and that certainly can't be easy. Glenn Beck is coming up next. I will talk with you tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.